and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. A little bit later today. It's a public holiday in the UK, which is nice. So no official work, but also means we can kind of start slightly later in the day, a little bit more relaxed as well. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, interesting. Also means I've got a nice cup of tea and stuff like that. Hey, Tom. I do have a fancy countdown, but it only goes from 10 and it doesn't do the bit in the middle. I've seen a couple of streamers do that actually, where they have like a 5-minute countdown thing. That seems crazy stressful. I like to know the live stream is going, but without committing to definitely starting in 5 minutes. But maybe I should. I don't know. I'll have a think about that. Right, we're kind of coming to the end of the summer break. It feels like a little bit. It's still definitely summer holiday times for everyone, and the kind of pace of news is slower. But this year more than ever, actually, there's been like a drip of new things coming out. I think all the teams are fired up about the AI stuff and the Copilot stuff, and the stuff coming. And so we're starting to get to that point now, where we're starting to think about what September, October, November is bringing. It's when some of the kind of winter conferences start up. There's some things happening for me at the end of September. We've got South Coast Summit in the UK in October. There's a couple of European conferences in November. We've got Microsoft Ignite as well. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what Ignite is like for big announcements and stuff like that. Still feels Microsoft are being quite cautious when it comes to kind of conferences and stuff like that. So that'll be an interesting one. I'm not planning on going to Ignite, I don't think, unless anyone wants to jump in and tells me I'm being really silly and I really should. I'm not sure. I don't know. Conferences are not really for the announcements, right? Because I think a lot of the announcements are either known beforehand or they're like pre-leaked, or like you're not really getting a lot out of being there just for the announcements. It's more for the conversations with the other people that are there. And so in some ways, conferences need that kind of tipping point before they become good. It's that catch-22 thing. Like, I don't want to go to the conference if there's not going to be enough good people there to talk to and get the value out of going. So therefore I don't go. So therefore the conference isn't big enough because everybody else thinks the same, and therefore the good people don't come. So we do need to find a way of squaring that circle. And I think we just need to find our conference mojo back again or something. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about the stuff that's new this week, because there is quite a bit of it. And one of the first things is an update to the Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. Talked about the Teams Toolkit quite a lot before. Collection of tools as an extension that you can add to Visual Studio Code makes it very easy to get started with building apps for Teams. And we spoke last week about the updated Teams app YAML file to kind of just break open that black box of what's happening. And there's even more stuff happening again this week. And the biggest one actually I want to touch on is support in Visual Studio Code for the new Teams AI library stuff that got announced 3 months ago, something like that. And so you can now create a bot that is built around the Teams app kind of library. It's an AI chatbot. And let me show you the blog post actually, because it's the one that I'm looking at, because then you can look at it too. Here we go. So here's the blog post from the Microsoft 365 platform blog team blog. Yeah, so this uses the Teams AI library. It's called an AI chatbot. That's the template to look for. And when you go and create a new bot, this is an option that you'll have now to go and create an AI chatbot. The reason for doing this, and the reason you'd want to do this versus kind of just reading up on all the Teams AI library stuff, this is going to get you to something that's working faster. It's going to do all that immediate scaffolding for you, so you don't have to worry about it. It'll make sure it works when you press F5. You'll be nicely set up with everything ready to go, and then you can check it out, and then you can just kind of dig around and see how it works and see what it does, and play with it from there. So yeah, kind of really interesting idea. I'm glad and surprised at how quickly this came actually as a new thing, making it into the toolkit. I know like AI is the flavor of the month right now, but even so, that was a quick iteration to take it from it existing in the Teams AI library to it existing in the toolkit. So good job, Toolkit team or Teams AI team or whoever it was, that collaboration, how that worked out. This is going to be a really good tool for people to just kind of get started using the Teams AI library. It's much I think it's much less scary for people coming into this world if you're not either deep into Teams development or you're not deep into AI or both. This is a much more accessible route coming in via this, the Visual Studio Toolkit, and kind of just being able to scaffold something up that works before you get going is way easier to deal with than having to start from scratch, having to read a bunch of GitHub stuff, download a bunch of code and all that sort of stuff, and worry that you're going to get it wrong at some point or it's not going to work and you've wasted all your time. So very, very cool. And that's not the only thing actually that got announced in this blog post. So that's what they've led with, but actually there's some other stuff in here. They've got a new sample. You might have seen this sample before if you go to any of the Microsoft 365 developer community calls. I think this is the same sample, but what they've done is they've taken it and they've put it inside Visual Studio Toolkit, so you can take it and just kind of use it as your sample to get going, which is nice. Again, it's about just making it easier to get started. It's about meaning that you don't need to know which GitHub repo you've got to go and find and do all that sort of stuff. So very, very cool. There's some new stuff. Again, we talked last week about the Teams app YAML file, and I think this is some extra stuff on top of last week's stuff. I haven't looked into it in a ton of detail, but enhanced code lens stuff for the Teams app YAML file. So that's cool. Yeah. And some other stuff in here, some other updates and all the rest of it. And then you've got the full list of like all the bug fixes, all the stuff they've done. So this is a quick iteration out from the team, from the Visual Studio Teams Toolkit team. So that's very cool. And yeah, go get it. It's a good time to, like, if you've never used the Toolkit before, you should definitely go and do that. But I mean, even if you use it every day, it's worth going back and just checking on some of the stuff you may be surprised it now does, because they keep iterating this stuff and they keep adding new features. And it's very easy to actually miss something, especially if you're in your workflow of, you know, I go here and I do this thing and I do this thing. Now go and check out the fact that you can create a new AI chatbot, for instance, which is not something you could have done last week. Talking about AI, actually, is a blog post that came out a while ago, like 17th of August, a while ago. And it's all about how to write good prompt engineering. And it's all like tips for making good engineering, like good prompts, basically, and how to do prompt engineering. And yeah, this is a good primer if you are, I mean, we're all quite new into this world, but if you haven't yet kind of dipped your toe into creating bots and being responsible for, you know, setting them up, if you like, with the prompt that gets them going and gives them the boundaries for how they're going to operate, then have a look at this blog post about prompt engineering, because it's a good one. It's a Microsoft one. It's come off from the Microsoft development team, and yeah, it's got some good tips in it for, you know, keeping the chat super focused. So like I think that's the biggest thing that people worry about with building these bots, is that they're going to build something that kind of just goes off the rails, right? We've all seen and heard the horror stories about these kind of chatbots that go off the rails. So the system prompt can really help that, because the system prompt defines whatever it is the user said. The system prompt kind of goes before that and says, okay, consider this question from the user within these parameters that I'm giving you. You know, your job is to answer questions about this particular problem domain. Don't feel like your job is to answer everything in the world. And so the way you do that is, you know, the way in which they're answered, again, that is something that you can put into the prompt. So you can say, so here's a really good example, like that you can put in the grounding, you know, the grounding prompt. So here's, like, let's say it's about a conference, like you've written a bot about a conference, which is what is in this blog post. You can specify the core details about the conference, but then also say things like, look, if you're going to show session information, always show the subject, the speaker, the location. Only show the description when responding about a single session. Don't kind of, yeah, again, don't make stuff up. Don't, you know, if the data's not there, don't try and like assume you know what it is. Again, even error message. I didn't realize this actually. You can change error responses as well. So you can rather than just being, you know, say there's no sessions available, you can say if there's no sessions available, remind the user about the dates and times of the conference, for instance. You know. Again, lots of good ideas here, lots worth reading, lots to go through, lots of different tips as well for testing stuff out and how to test stuff out, which is cool as well, because we're all new to this, and we're just going to have to try some things out and see what works, especially in your problem domain. I mean, honestly, in your problem domain, if you're writing a bot right now and you're considering the prompt for the bot that is in your problem domain, you are probably gonna be the first person to do this. Hey Jeremy, question about where the blog is located. Okay, so all of the links are going to be in the description, and I'm going to put them in just as soon as the video wraps, which is going to be like, they're normally about 15-20 minute videos, so as soon after that, that's where it's going to be. This particular one is at devblogs.microsoft.com if you want to go and try and find it quickly. It's called Prompt Engineering Tips, but in general, when I do these videos, I don't kind of call out the URLs during the video because it's kind of messy. But as soon as the video finishes and gets published, I'll edit the description to include the links of all of the things I've talked about. And it'll also be on my blog post. And if you're listening to this through the podcast that comes out like later today, then they'll be in the description as well. So wherever it is if you're not watching this live, it will be in your description. And if you are watching this live, just wait a bit. I haven't quite figured out how to square that circle yet, because I used to do these videos like just like recorded and then posted, and then obviously the descriptions were always in the notes. It's a kind of messy to kind of, it's not messy, it just takes a long time to do the live stream and then also like figure out putting the URLs in as well, because nobody really wants to like type the URLs off a screen. So and there's no good way. Perhaps I need a bot to put it in the chat or something, don't I? That's the answer. That's what I should do. I wonder if can I cheat? Just bear with me, guys. This might be your answer, Jeremy. If I can figure out how to do it, which I should be able to do, but this is like, we'll see. And then we'll carry on. Okay, so for this particular blog post, there it is. I can do it. That's cool. Perhaps I'll start doing that more often, actually. Would that be useful? Anyway, let's carry on. Something else to talk about. Adaptive cards. Let's shift gears slightly. Adaptive cards and loop. Adaptive cards and loop. So there's now a new developer preview for creating adaptive cards that can contain loop components. So this is pretty exciting. For a while, or for up until the whole time that loop components have been out, it's not been something developers can get like really involved in doing. They've been loop inside other things, so it's like loop in Teams or loop in Outlook or loop in these other places. Now developers can create adaptive cards, and they can contain loop components too. Again, developer preview. This isn't live yet, but if you want to start building on this stuff today, then this will get you a great head start, and it's how it's going to be done, so you can really start going now. Here's a fun picture. You can see, so bottom left is Outlook, bottom right is Teams, and the top bit is your own application, so your own web-based application. The idea they're showing is they've all got an adaptive card in them, and they're all showing the same loop component. So loop components mean real-time updating of stuff. So as one person in one app updates the data in that loop component, it's instantly replicated everywhere else that loop component is being shown, regardless of the application in which it's in. It actually sounds pretty easy to do. What they've done is they've piggybacked on top of adaptive cards. So you already need to be in a place where you've got an application, so like a message-based, a message extension app for, let's say, Teams, that you've already extended out, so it is something you can view in Outlook as well. And if you don't know what any of those words mean, go searching on my blog. It's probably about a year ago to 6 months ago. There was some changes to how you could build messaging extensions for Microsoft Teams that actually surfaced them to Outlook as well. So people in Outlook could use them. Also people using the Microsoft 365 online experiences, and also the Microsoft 365 like app thing, launcher app. So you need to have one of those basically. So that is what you need to be doing. You also need to add link unfurling capabilities to your app. And that's the kind of clever bit really. And then you've done all that extending stuff. So you've made your Teams application, your Teams messaging extension accessible to Outlook and 365. Once you've done all of that, then there's a little metadata update you need to make to your manifest. you give it a web URL property of what your adaptive card payload is, and then what they'll do is they'll take your adaptive card and they'll like wrap it inside the loop system, so that then everywhere you've got a loop component which is your adaptive card, and then you're responsible then for kind of keeping your adaptive card up to date and all the rest of it. But if you've got to this point, you've kind of done all the hard work already. You're really just enabling them to show it in a loop component. I've kind of skipped over some of the detail there, but it is all in that blog post. So go check out that blog post if that's useful. Because I'm on a roll now, I'm going to find a better way of doing this another day. But if you can see the chat and you can see the links, then that is a link to that blog post that I was just talking about. But yeah, I'll try and figure out a slightly nicer way of doing that for another day. Okay, let's talk about something else, and that is Microsoft Teams activity notifications. Okay, so this is kind of a quick one. We're going to skim over this quite quickly, but it's important if you're an IT admin or you work in a big corporate place where getting permissions sorted is really tough. And I think Microsoft hear you on this. And a while ago, like pre-pandemic, a while ago, they came up with this idea of resource-specific consent. And the idea of resource-specific consent was that rather than these massive permissions that were overarching across the whole tenant and gave applications the kind of permission, if you like, to do that thing across the entire tenant, when really the application really only wanted to do it to a really small thing like a channel or a particular user or something like that, resource-specific consent allowed owners of the application to say, yep, I'm going to allow this permission, but only for my team that I'm an owner of and therefore I've got control over, or only me because I'm the user. And so this app can have permission, but only for me, not for the whole tenant. And that was really a kind of a response to, IT teams and IT admins understandably being cautious about giving third-party applications wide-ranging permission to their tenant. And that's a similar thing happening here with activity notifications. Up until now, if you wanted to send activity notifications, that was a tenant-wide thing. Now it's using resource-specific consent. You can now, you've got the notification API, and you can now use RSC as a user to say, okay, this app is allowed to do, send user permissions just for me, just for this app. So that's pretty cool. And like quite a quick one, but just here's the blog post. There's not an awful lot of detail other than just to say, this is here. 22nd of August, this stuff got announced. It's a public preview right now. Again, so if you can dig into this, or you might need to wait for it to GA if you're in a big organization somewhere. But there'll be a couple of other kind of permission things to jump through if you want to take advantage of this. But probably it will be easier than anything you're trying to do right now that is tenant-wide. So let me put the link for that in here as well, so that you've got it. And then I just want to very quickly talk about the last thing, because this is going long, but that's fine, and that's good fun. And there's been good engagement today, so thanks for all the questions. That's been really nice. I've done it later in the day, so maybe that works. I usually do it a lot earlier, and obviously, US folks are usually asleep. But mostly that's because it kind of ties in better with my working day. This kind of time would be probably in the way of a normal working day, but like I say, we're a public holiday at the moment, so I can get away with it. Oh, that's nice. The last thing I just want to tell you about is Office add-ins. So people that write Office add-ins, developers for Microsoft Office add-ins, this one is for you. No big dev changes, but it's going to be easier for users to find their add-ins, which I think is a really good thing. It's one of those things that when I saw the blog post, I thought, I'm surprised this isn't here already. Why isn't this here already? And how has it taken so long? But it's such a kind of like, oh, of course moment. So from within Microsoft apps, so places like, Word, like the big apps, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you're going to be able to find add-ins really quickly. There's an upgraded experience is what they're calling it, but like a much easier way to find apps. Trying to make it as easy as it is in, say, Teams to find the app that would help you in the moment. And that is this blog post here. It's on Tech Community, and I'll put the link in a minute. And you can see the apps here. you can see it's much easier to kind of just see some apps that are available. The quick access, there'll be a search. You can immediately jump to the add-in place. And then down here as well, you've got this kind of get add-ins. You've got your add-ins and then a whole bunch of other stuff that's kind of categorized. And really, this is just making it easier for users to know that add-ins exist. Because I feel like quite a lot of the time, that's the first problem. Users don't even know that add-ins exist for things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and stuff like that. So just visualizing that stuff and saying, actually, there's the thing you're trying to do. Actually, there could be an add-in for it. This is where you can get them from. This is where you can find them. This is where you can manage them. It's a much more up-to-date way than really add-ins in those big applications hasn't really, like the way add-ins get presented to users really hasn't changed since those kind of COM add-ins of the old days. So this is cool to see. It's kind of overdue, if I'm honest, but I'm really glad to see that it is here. You'll be able to see them. And there's some interesting information about it here, such as like who chooses these ones in the top, who chooses the ones that get advertised, that get the headlines. They've got some stuff here about the criteria. I did a blog post a while back actually on the criteria that the Teams App Store use as well, which is kind of interesting. It seems like a similar thing, right? It's around the quality, it's around user engagement, it's around those ones that have been through the compliance certification process, and all the rest of it. So some more details in this blog post, but if you're an Office add-in developer, then this is kind of good news because it means that your add-in is just going to get a bit more visibility and hopefully more downloads for you. All right, that is everything I want to talk about this week. See, I said there was going to be a lot, even though we're still technically in the summer holiday period and it's supposed to be really quiet. This is a strange year. It's not a year where everything has been deathly quiet. Copilot, I think, has set a fire under lots of teams, and I think lots of teams are trying to race really to embed Copilot, embed AI, make the most of it, understand where it can really help their product or the thing they're responsible for. And so we've seen a lot of teams working over the summer as well, I think. So I'm kind of excited. That's why I was talking about Ignite earlier. I'm kind of excited to see what comes out of Ignite. And it's going to be one of two things, I think. We're either going to see no real big new announcements, just a kind of solidification of the stuff that's already been pre-announced, because quite a lot has been pre-announced already. Quite a lot has been trailed. Certainly around all of Copilot, and we talked about that, how that's been kind of pre-announced, and actually how that's been quite a good thing because it's allowed people to prepare. But also, it'll be interesting to see if there's new stuff coming out as well, or whether there isn't new stuff coming out, and that's it. We're just gonna have to wait and see, I think, and see how that goes as we get closer to that kind of conference season. All right, I'm gonna let you get back to the rest of your day. I hope it's been useful. Check the podcast later if that sounds interesting. There's an audio only version. The video will be up on YouTube just as soon as it finishes processing, which seems to take forever for live videos. I don't know why. And I'll update the LinkedIn stuff later with all the links. Thank you very much for watching or listening, and I will see you all again next week.